Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, please make sure you're adhering to the employee handbook guidelines on clocking in and out. A student's malicious compliance backfires. Want me at work on time? Of course. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Please make sure you're adhering to the employee handbook guidelines on clocking in and out. I work Monday through Friday 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. I am an hourly employee and my company's time clocking is not rounded, meaning we are effectively getting paid by the minute. I usually clock in at 7:20 because it does give me a bit of easy overtime pay, and it allows me a few quiet minutes in the morning to check some emails while enjoying my coffee. A few of my other co-workers clock in early every day too, between 10 and 15 minutes. Our manager doesn't mind because we are a productive and reliable team. We all clock out at 4 o'clock on the dot unless we are held up by a meeting or some other obligation. Well, we had a staff meeting on Friday and our supervisor mentioned that the higher-ups are starting to watch OT and people's clocking times, so to please ensure we are all adhering to the company's time and attendance policies and to review the employee handbook for further information. So I reviewed the handbook. The policy states that employees are to punch in no sooner than 7 minutes prior to their start time. Fair enough, I will clock in at 7:23 then. I continue reading and learn that employees may clock out up to 7 minutes after their scheduled end time without violating the time and attendance policy. So now instead of 7:20 to 4 p.m., I will be clocking in at 7:23 and out at 4:07, giving myself 4 additional minutes of additional time every day. A student's malicious compliance backfires. This is a story from one of my college friends, Zach, and how he one day decided to jokingly comply with a professor's request only to have it shot right back in his face. So, for quick background, Zach and I were both students in our university's department for fields such as animation, game design, and film. Since Zach and I studied similar fields, Zach studied game design and I studied animation, we were both required to take a series of classes called 3D modeling with a professor I'll call Professor Rick. Rick was a one-of-a-kind professor who was not only experienced in the field, but also a very understanding and approachable man who knew how to make the subject fun and easy for all of us. 3D modeling, as you'd probably expect, was a very project-heavy class. Each month or so, you'd be assigned a project. Let's say, for example, the project is a fully detailed and functioning lamp model, which you would work on both in and out of class throughout the month. You'd also be required to submit your current progress online each week for feedback and an easy A as long as you had shown you were making progress. Classes would usually be spent talking about the next part of the project and then working on them. As long as you were actually doing the work, listening to Rick's feedback, and actively improving, the class was an easy A. Pretty simple, right? Anyway, the story begins about a week after one of these projects started. One day, Zach's laptop suddenly had massive technical issues and needed to be repaired. While he was assured the issue could and would be fixed, he wouldn't be able to get the laptop back before the following week, after the deadline for the upcoming progress report was due. Not only was this a problem because Zach couldn't access the progress he had already made on the project, but also because these projects required a very specific type of software that you couldn't access on any normal school computer. These projects also required hours to work on, so he couldn't just borrow a laptop to use to finish the project. So Zach had no choice to talk to Professor Rick about his issue. Thankfully, Rick understood what was going on because, like any person would in this industry, he knew how unpredictable technology could be and that issues tended to happen. On top of that, he knew already that Zach had been working on his project in class, so he knew Zach wasn't lying. So, when Zach asked what he could do for the upcoming progress report, Professor Rick said, "Just submit whatever you've got and I'll grade it. Don't worry about it." Now, Zach knew what Professor Rick probably wanted. Since we were required to submit progress reports each week, Zach could have easily used a campus computer to download a previous file and resubmit it with no issue. However, Zach had another idea. See, Zach is a huge fan of dry humor. So did Professor Rick. So Zach thought it would be funny to submit something different for Professor Rick instead of what he'd expect. So he submitted a simple one-page Word document with "sorry" in big letters written in the middle. He then left a comment attached to the submission saying, "Sorry, I didn't think you'd care what I turned in, so I gave you this." Zach then moved on with his day. Professor Rick said nothing to him about it, and about a week passed. Like I mentioned before, most of these projects were guaranteed A's, so when Zach saw the notification that the grade was submitted, he didn't think to check right away. Then, one day, while looking through the app we used to submit our work, he noticed something off. His grade for 3D modeling, which was once an A, was now a C-. He was completely confused, and upon investigating what could be the cause, he noticed one grade that looked very different. The progress report received a grade of -200 out of 100. Zach was absolutely stunned. How the heck was a negative score even possible? He quickly checked the submission and saw underneath his comment was a reply from Professor Rick that said, "Sorry, I didn't think you'd care what grade I gave you, so I just gave you this instead." Zach panicked, thinking he made Professor Rick angry, and as soon as the next class started, he approached the professor with his laptop open to the grade to ask what the heck was happening. But before he could speak, Professor Rick saw the grade, saw Zach's face, and started laughing. He laughed hard. Zach then realized what was going on and started laughing too. The grade was changed to a 100 out of 100 the very next day. I genuinely loved my professors. Want me at work on time? Of course. At my previous job, I always arrived about 10 to 15 minutes early to get settled in and get my computer up and running, get logged into all my mail and accounts, pull up all my tabs and whatnot. It took my computer about 10 minutes or so to boot up and get up to speed. One morning I arrive at work about 5 minutes early instead of my usual 10 minutes. I guess I scuttled up the stairs to make sure I was up and running by 8, that is, to make sure I'm in the desk with my computer on at 7:55 at the latest. Not 10 minutes later, my boss, not my direct supervisor, comes over and says he saw me jogging through the parking lot. He asked me, in that underhanded confrontational way when one knows the answer already, if I was late that morning. I explained just as I have in this post. He says, "Oh, okay, and that's that." I look at the clock. It's like 8:02. I think to myself, "Oh, so that's what kind of person you are. Got it. If you want me to arrive on time, I will." From then on, I go about my business, still arriving at the usual time, 7:50 or so, but instead of setting up, I just set my stuff down and oh, what a nice morning outside, I think I might take a little walk around the office park for 10 minutes or so. Maybe I might go down to the lobby and get a cup of coffee or something. Maybe I might sit at my desk on my phone, after all, it's not technically business hours yet, right? Then, at exactly 8, I'll turn everything on and let my computer spend the next 10 minutes booting up and get logged in. I did the math. 2 minutes late would have costed the company 63 cents. I continued to work there for 6 more months before I got a better, salaried, job elsewhere, doing the same thing every morning. 10 minutes a day, 5 times a week, for 6 months, that's over $400. Not a lot of money, really, but a hell of a lot more than 63 cents. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.